Sărmașul este un episod foarte tragic din 1944 care înmulțește numărul victimelor din Ardealul de Nord.
Nimeni nu credea în 1940 că se vor întâmpla asemenea atrocități.
Acest masacru de la Sărmașul, împreună cu masacrul de la Moisei, care a avut loc peste o lună de zile, au fost ultimele două mari masacre din cel de-al doilea război mondial.
Eu am dat de groapă și pe când am băgat bota, încă așa se legăna pământul pe evrei.
Acesta este dosarul anchetei masacrului de la Sărmaș, care cuprinde numeroase declarații ale martorilor, dar și ale agresorilor care au fost investigați după război. Sunt mii de pagini de declarații și documente care ajută astăzi la reconstituirea adevărului istoric.
Good afternoon to everybody. Bună ziua. Suntem la cafeneaua online, ICR Tel Aviv. We are at the Romanian cafe online of the Romanian Cultural Institute in Tel Aviv. And today's subject is a movie, a documentary that was presented just now, a few minutes ago. On our website, on the Facebook page of the Romanian Cultural Institute. The movie is called, the title is Sărmaș 44. It's about a tragic episode from the Holocaust of the Jews in Romania, in nowadays Romania, in 1944. As probably everybody knows, 135,000 Jews perished in northern Transylvania under Hungarian rule, and one of the most tragic episodes, a massacre of 126 Jewish persons happened in Sărmaș. We are together with the authors of this movie, Adrian Cioflâncă, historian, director of the Center for the Study of the History of Jews in Romania. Hello, Adrian. Welcome. Hello. And Teodora Drăgoi, a producer, TV producer, and a journalist. Hi, Teodora.
Hello.
Welcome to.
Hello.
Welcome to the Romanian Cultural Institute's online event. First of all, I want to congratulate to you for this very important documentary, and I want to ask both of you, what was the trigger for this documentary, the idea of making it and making it happen. Adrian, can you tell us about the story of the movie, the origin?
Well, this subject is somehow at the margin of my research field. I'm not specialized in the history of the Holocaust in Transylvania. Of course, I'm interested in all the episodes of the Holocaust occurring on the territory of Romania. But in this case, I've been looking for the photos of the Sărmaș massacre for many years. We have several copies and several originals of the photos in the archive of the Center for the Study of Jewish History, in which I'm the director. And I noticed that some of the photos which were published years ago by Hungarian historians are not in Romanian archives. And I was wondering what happened with the originals. And last year, in September, a transport of files came from the Romanian Secret Service. From from time to time, they deliver documents to the National Council for the Study of the Securitate Archives. And they decided to give us, finally, the documentation of the post-war trial of the Sărmaș massacre. And inside the files, I found this spectacular and impressive photos of the exhuming of the corpses of the victims in Sărmaș, which happened in at the beginning of 1945. And as I've been working with Teodora for several months, at that point, we already finished 2 documentaries regarding the mass killings in Bessarabia and the massacre in Odessa, perpetrated by Romanian authorities in the summer and in the autumn of 1941. And we traveled in the Republic of Moldova and in Ukraine. So we have this experience of working together, and we decided to make a film about this episode as well.
Teodora, who proposed you to be the producer, and how did you receive this proposal?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Nobody told me do it, because I think this is my job as a journalist. And I also believe that the national television, the public national television, should have this kind of productions. And Adrian told you, we had a great job together for our first 2 documentaries. So here at the TVR, TVR, we have a special program, a special TV show. Mosaica is about the Jewish community in Romania. So I told Adrian, you know, I want to have a special edition with the occasion of International Day of Holocaust for Mosaica. And I told him, I want to make something about the Holocaust in Northern Transylvania. Can you help me? And after a few days, he told me that he has some interesting archives about Sărmaș. We can go on the field. There we can find maybe some witnesses of the massacre. So for my production, for my TV production, was a great opportunity. I spoke with my supervisor, my executive producer, Borislav Velimirovic, and he told me, you can go if you think you can do a great job there, if you have all you needed for this documentary film. Great.
So it was a happy coincidence in a way, and a happy,
yes.
Good fit of from the both sides.
Yes.
You mentioned that the Romanian television, where the national public television broadcasting that you work at, has channels, programs about the minorities, right, and about the Jewish minority as well. And I know that you are working especially for the minorities section of the Romanian television. How did you get to be involved in this subject of the Jewish community in Romania?
Yes, well, first of all, I want to tell you that National Television of Romania has an entire department, other minorities, which makes TV shows about and with minorities from Romania, recognized officially in the Parliament of Romania. Well,
the non-Hungarian minorities, that means not other, right?
Yes,
or
because
non-Hungarian and non-German.
Yes, yes, because they have separated departments and separated shows. Okay, and my story with TVR, it's a long story and a beautiful one. Because I studied anthropology at the University of Bucharest, I had a chance to have an internship here in TVR. And after 2 years of internship, somebody told me, I think you are good for other minorities department because of your studies, anthropology. And about Mosaica and about the Jew community, well, here it's very simple, because in 2018, our department started to produce Mosaica, this specialty show. And my supervisor told me, if, no, Teodora, do you want to work for this show? I think it's good for you. And I told him yes, because it's an interesting community, because I worked with them for over 5 years, I guess, in this department.
So you already have experience about the Jewish subjects.
Yes.
Adrian Cioflâncă is very experienced in Jewish history and the history of Holocaust in Romania, even if he's very young. And I want to ask, I want to ask you, Adrian, you have so much experience about the research of pogroms, of discovering common graves and all kind of horrible and tragic episodes of the Holocaust in Romania. What did you see in Sărmaș different from other such massacres, crimes? What impressed you? What hit you more than other times, or different than other times?
Well, this is the first mass grave I'm researching perpetrated by Hungarian authorities. And first of all, I was struck by the similarities of the mass killings, because if we speak about killings happening in the East, or these types of episodes perpetrated in Western Ukraine, or in Western Romania, or in Northwestern Romania, they are similar in many respects. And this is striking. And this is why we speak about the Holocaust, because of course there are many details which are different, but this is why we speak about a common phenomenon, because people were killed no matter by whom, no matter where, by the same rage, by the same fury, with methodologies which look alike. So the similarities are striking. It's in a way a sign that this methodology of crime spread among the killers all over Eastern Europe, because from a certain point on, they it will sound strange, but they know how to do it, like quickly, in a very efficient way, and they know how to erase the traces of the killings. This killing was perpetrated during the night. It started after the midnight, and the logistics of the crime it's impressive. They chose a very a place which is isolated from the localities in the area of Târgu Mureș and Cluj. They used modern technology, but also archaic instruments to kill people, because they were killed savagely by the Hungarian gendarmes, and also with the participation of the locals. this episode. It's very difficult to explain in the context because there are no so many massacres of this kind in Transylvania. At that place and at that time, the methodology of killing was changed because 1941 was the year for this for the so-called Holocaust by bullets, when German troops and their allies went to on the territory of the Soviet Union, and they killed Jews by hanging, by bullets, or by putting them on fire. After they're starting with 1942, the Germans decided to be more discreet, and they used gas chambers to kill Jews and industrially. And this killing in Sărmaș happened in 1944. And this is a way of going back to the methods of 1941. And this is striking. And this is a result of extreme anti-Semitism and a very particular context, which was explained during the post-war trial. Actually, there were several post-war trials covering this subject. The historians are familiar with the one happened immediately after the war, but there was another one in the 50s, and we got right now the entire documentation in our archive. So whoever is interested in the subject can come to the reading room of CNSAS, of the Council for the Study of the Securitate Archives, and read the files.
Yeah, right. Actually, one of our followers wants to ask about the consequences, about how the participants to the massacre, the criminals, were punished. We have a few questions already on our Facebook page, most of them in Romanian, so I will translate to English in order to be understood by our Israeli followers who don't speak Romanian. So Miki Koren asks if, Mr. Cioflâncă, do you know how those who participated to the massacre were punished, the Hungarians and those who helped them, in order to be understood by our Israeli followers who don't speak Romanian. So Miki Koren asks if, hello, Mr. Cioflâncă, do you know how those who participated in the massacre were punished, the Hungarians and those who... Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, did you hear my question, Adrian?
Yes. Well, as I said, some of the perpetrators, mostly local collaborators, and some gendarmes were imprisoned after the war. We speak of about tens of people, members of the paramilitary Hungarian groups, members of the Hungarian Gendarmerie, of the Honved, the Hungarian army. But the most important perpetrators ran to Hungary after the war. There was a protocol between Romania and Hungary, which at that time were both communist countries, to exchange war criminals, but this never happened. So the Romanian authorities were not able to punish some of the perpetrators who took part in the mass killing.
So most of them just got away with it, I suppose.
No, actually, more than half were punished by the Romanian authorities. after the war.
Those who didn't leave to Hungary.
Yeah.
But those were Hungarian military, so how could they be kept in Romania? They left when the Hungarian army left, right? We didn't mention that this was a very short period of time after 23 of August, when Romania changed the sides, and the Hungarians from northern Transylvania, the Hungarian army tried to react on the events after 23 of August 44, and to counter-strike against Romania, but that didn't last more than maybe a week, and after that the Hungarian army withdrew from northern Transylvania. Sorry, just wanted to clarify for those who don't really can picture the situation on the front in September 44.
Yeah, indeed,
Yes.
the combat attacked Romania after August 1944, and they occupied several localities beyond the border of the Vienna decision in 1940. And Sărmaș was occupied at the beginning of September. It was occupied on the 5th of September, and they created a sort of a ghetto. The Jews in Sărmaș were forced to wear the yellow star, and they were rounded up in a sort of a building which was called the ghetto. And after that, they were put in cars, and they went to Sărmașel and beyond that in this area where they were killed on a hill. And there was almost a month in which the Hungarians were occupying this area, which was outside the power of the Romanian army. It is important to note that the main perpetrators were Hungarian gendarmes, and actually most of them were locals. So they were Hungarians from Transylvania, and this is why they were caught by the communist authorities after the war.
I see. Yeah, we still have some questions, but I will ask both of you, what did you feel seeing those photos and listening to those witnesses and stories? Teodora, did you know about this story before starting to work for the movie? What happened in Sărmaș?
I knew very little, and Adrian told me a lot of things. And I still believe that for a journalist and for a documentary film, it's very important to have a good historian by your side. And this is why I worked very good with Adrian, because I trusted him very much. I trusted his information. And about my impression about Sărmaș, I have for you two answers. My first answer is the answer of a journalist. Having an historian, having this field, having archives, having a witness, it's very good for TV production, because you have all you needed. I know maybe it's not the best word, good, in this situation, but for my job was all I wanted. The other answer is the answer of a young lady, maybe sometimes sensitive, sensible, and it's hard to see that from an entire community, there is now just a cemetery. I think this is powerful, and I think we should learn something from that. And having in front of my eyes this man, Ioan Mocean, who lived that history, also is emotionally for me. Maybe women are sensitive in these situations, but it's important. And for me as a person, this occasion was very important for my life, for my point of views of life.
Yeah, that cemetery in open field in the middle
Yes.
of nowhere is really a touching image. I've been there once for a commemoration. Adrian, I have a few more questions here, mainly for
Vlad Solomon is asking us if there was a difference in the treatment between Jews and war prisoners. And yes, indeed. In the case of the Jews, they were war killed. In the case of the war criminals, like local Christians, except several persons who were tortured by local Hungarian authorities, and some of them were, one or two were killed. The rest were imprisoned, and in the end they escaped with their lives. But in the case of the Jews, they were all killed. And this is why we don't know exactly the triggers for the mass killing. We know that there was a meeting before the massacre of the local authorities with the representatives of the Hungarian gendarmerie, but we don't know, till this moment, we don't know details about what triggered the killings, what was in the mind of the killers. So because the most important perpetrators were not caught after the war, and those who were in prison didn't talk, didn't speak about it so much. So we don't know details about the killings. And nobody escaped with lives. Sometimes from Transnistria or from Bessarabia, one or several persons escaped. And this is how we have most of the details about the actual killing. But in this case, all the Jews were killed.
Yeah, we have also from Vlad Solomon. Is it similar to the Odessa massacre? He asks. Of course, as a proportion, Odessa is a much bigger story. But what do you think?
Well, the proportion makes the entire difference, because in the case of Odessa, we have an orgy of all types of killings. People were burned alive, were hanged on the streets of Odessa. They were put in a building, and which exploded afterwards. And some were put in barracks, and they were burned alive. So, and most of them were killed by the Romanian army in open view. So the massacre in Sărmaș was very discreet, was perpetrated during the night. So there are differences in this spectacle of killing. In Odessa, the Romanian army wanted to prove something to the locals. In this case, it's only a racial killing. They just wanted to get rid discreetly but violently of the Jews.
Right. Miss Dragoi, question from Vlad Solomon. Is it your first attempt to produce a Holocaust film? Did it enrich you? did you try also to propose a documentary about Dorohoi
It's not
or
my
other
first
places in Moldavia? Yeah.
Okay, it's not my first documentary. We said that. Yes, I want to go in Moldavia and have there something. I work a lot with Adrian, and I work a lot with the Federation of Jewish Communities in Romania. So we had in plan a lot of films, but now in these times we should stay in home. And after this period of coronavirus, maybe we will have something else.
And we have a, thank you. We have a sociological, psychological question here from Delia Mark. Wow, it's difficult to translate it to English. From a psycho-social anthropological point of view, how do you explain the hatred of the Hungarians against the ethnic Jews, against the Jews, and the easiness that they produce these killings, women, children, men that they didn't know, who didn't attack them, and she concludes that Delia Mark, that the evil stands in lack of education, but not only that.
Well, this doesn't explain the killings, because there are studies in the case of the Nazi elite and the commanders of the Einsatzgruppen and the members of the SS, and most of them followed the university studies. 1/3 of them had PhDs. And in the case of Sărmaș, the killings was decided by the local elite, by the most important representatives of the Hungarian community in Sărmaș, in collaboration with the Hungarian gendarmerie. So most of those people were educated. So this doesn't explain. It's about ideology, it's about anti-Semitism, and it's about the combination with the atmosphere of the war, which provides the opportunity to kill people without punishment, to invoke the condition of the war, to eliminate all type of categories of people which are targeted or considered an enemy or a danger for the other part. And it's also about the dilemma of security, because whenever people feel endangered and in this, they are entrapped in this tension and fear and tension of the war. There are situations like that when they decide to go against somebody without defense or against an ideological target.
Yeah, I agree. I think nothing can explain Holocaust. There is no explanation. At least the human mind can't accept it, that it happened. For me, it was very interesting, even if the movie is a short one, the documentary is a short one, 22 minutes, but it opens a lot of questions, a lot of issues, a lot of subjects. And one of those subjects for me that was interesting to follow was the reception after, during the communist regime, the 45 years of communism, between 44 and 89, right? How this story of the massacre was hidden or taken off and showed according to the interest of the regime, how it was kept only in the inside of the Jewish community for several decades, and then suddenly in '84 it became an argument of the national communistic regime of Romania. My question to you, Adrian, mainly to you, is why do you think that the communist regimes, and not only in Romania, everywhere in Eastern Europe, tried to hide that the Holocaust, tried to not to speak too much about what happened? It's strange because logically it was done by a rival ideology, by the Nazis, and the communists had all the interest to promote, look what the Nazis did, they are the far right, they are bad, they killed in an animalic way people. Okay, of course the communists did it as well with the Gulag, but this was a good argument, would have been a good argument for the communists that their ideology is better, but even so they didn't use this argument, let's say so. They tried to hide it. What do you think? Why did this happen during the decades after the Second World War?
They killed people not like animals. They killed people humanly in a very sophisticated way. And in the case of the communists, there are several reasons for which, in my interpretation, they didn't treat the Holocaust right. First of all, if you take a look at the official definition of fascism, which was issued by Comintern and Georgi Dimitrov, you see that the communists have no intellectual instruments to understand the power of anti-Semitism, of racism. The definition treats anti-Semitism as a sort of a diversion, something which distract people from their most important interests. If you define anti-Semitism like that, and you don't understand that it is based on hatred, you don't see the point. The second reason, communism is a victimology. So they focus, they stress out a lot their victims in the repression before the war, because in Romania, for example, communism was prohibited by law in the 20s, and they were hunted by police and the secret services and the Romanian army and so on. So they became victims, and this victimology became an important instrument of legitimation after the war. But when they started to speak about their victims, the communists, and the victims of the Jewish community, the difference was striking. They realized that the main target of the regime were the Jews, not the communists. Of course, there was an important anti-communist rhetoric of the regime, but the Antonescu regime killed mostly Jews. If you take a look on what happened in Vapniarka, a camp dedicated to political prisoners in Transnistria, and you see the fate of other camps in Transnistria, you see that you have many survivors of Vapniarka, and you have only 16 survivors of the Mostovoy camp, and so on. So the main target were the Jews, and this was difficult to admit during the starting years of the communist regimes. And in the end, after a short period of transition, when there was a sort of openness and public discussion about the killings in Transnistria against Jews, after 1948, after there was a conflict between the Soviet Union and the newly created state of Israel, the communist authorities decided to transform the Holocaust in a taboo, and the archives were closed, and the subject was dedicated to the party historians only. But this lasted only for 2 decades, because starting with the 60s and the 70s, and more evidently in the 80s, the regime rediscovered the importance of nationalism. And when they started to have problems of legitimacy, they relied more and more on nationalism. And they rehabilitated some intellectual and political figures which were prohibited for the public memory beforehand. And they started to rediscover authors of different types of nationalist discourse. And in the 80s, what is striking, the Romanian Communist Party and the Securitate started to speak the language of the Antonescu regime. So there was little discussion about the Holocaust in Transnistria, but at the same time, as our documentary shows, there is a focus on the Holocaust in northern Transylvania, because that one was perpetrated by Hungarians. So in the 80s, you have a lot of discussion about the Holocaust in Transylvania, and they used the term the Holocaust when they spoke about these killings, and they avoided the term and the discussion about Transnistria, about Bessarabia, about the Dorohoi pogrom, about the Iași pogrom, and so on. And I suppose it's a political trigger and an ideological trigger, because nationalism is part of the Romanian cultural politics, and it is still important today.
Yeah, it makes very great sense, right? You got to the point. I didn't think about that it was like being jealous on the Jewish victims, right? It's something like a jealousy. The Jewish victims are not. We are the communist victims are more important than the Jewish victims from their point of view, and they try to hide the Holocaust because of that. And what you said about the 80s, Tiboris Sabo-Zoltan is the historian that is a key figure in your documentary, mentioned that in the 80s the Romanian communist regime uses the theme of Holocaust in northern Transylvania in order to use it against the Hungarians and to make a Romanian nationalistic subject out of it. Well, we have a few more questions, but we don't have much time left. Miki Koren is a comment. He says the short documentary film by Teodora Drăgoi and Adrian Cioflâncă was very real and interesting, and we wish you success and continue to make some other movies about the tragedy of Jewish people during the Second World War and the rich history of the Jewish community in Romania. Okay, Robbie Klein, thank you for this important program. Do you know that criminals of war became big communists after the war. My father told me about one person in our city of Deva. Well, maybe.
Well, this is an urban legend. There are several cases of people who perpetrated mass killings and they were rehabilitated after the war. But most of them were rehabilitated after 1989, after the revolution. And we see right now some rehabilitations in Hungary. And this is why we discuss so much about the Viktor Orban tendency to reinterpret history. This subject should be a subject in Hungary as well, because this speaks about the responsibility of the Horthy regime in perpetrating mass killings against Jews. And this is perpetrated by Hungarian uniforms, not by the Nazis, because there is a tendency in Hungary right now to focus responsibility on Germans. And this is a case study when a different image emerges. And but let's hope that there will be an echo of the subject as well in Hungary, and that we will have Hungarian historians to come to Csenesas and read the files extensively. The file of this trial has 65 volumes. So it's a huge piece of documentation, and it takes time to cover the entire story. Some of the documents are in Hungarian, so we need Hungarian historians to read the files.
Yeah, Vlad Solomon also is asking if the movie will be presented at the Hungarian television. Hopefully, yes, in the future. And Mordechai Leventer says, Bună seara, good evening. Thank you for the show. In 1978, when I was 11, I visited Sărmaș, and I can't forget until today that place. Even if I visited Auschwitz as well. Those places left a strong mark on me. Thank you very much. Well, I want to thank you as well on behalf of the Romanian Cultural Institute for being with us today. I want to congratulate to Adrian Cioflâncă also for the new movie, the documentary movie, The Exit of the Train, that had 2-3 days ago the premiere in Romania, right? And hopefully it will be presented in Israel as well in the near future. Congratulations, Adrian.
Thank you.
This movie, which was done together with Radu Jude, has a strong echo already, and it was it received a prize in Berlin, and hopefully we will see it soon in Israel. Thank you very much, Theodora. Thank you very much, Adrian, and keep up the good work, and see you next time in Israel. Hopefully, yes. You were both already participated in our events physically in the last years, and let's hope that can happen soon in the future after the pandemic will be over. Thank you very much. See you every week at the Café online, the Romanian cafe online. This time it was in English. We do it in Romanian, we do it in Hebrew, we organize a lot of important and interesting events. This time it was an online movie. Next time, see you next Thursday, next week. Thank you very much. Good evening to everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.